But support for the standards, once split down party lines, are now receiving some unlikely conservative supporters.
Among them, Michael Brickman, National Policy Director at the Thomas B. Fordham Institute. Michael joins us from our Newsmax Washington Bureau. Michael, you say there's a conservative case for Common Core. Briefly stated, what is that case?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, JD. I appreciate it. And, you know, this is something that, frankly, conservatives have been fighting for a long time. Conservatives have been demanding a back-to-basics focus on the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, a focus on none of this kind of feel-good nonsense that isn't going to prepare students for the workforce or for a good college education. We want to make sure that students are actually leaving high school with enough knowledge and skills to be able to do something productive when they graduate. That has been the conservative position for a very long time. And while I understand people have some concerns about the process with regard to Common Core and how it's been politicized, I think when you actually look at the standards themselves, they're really quite good.
Michael, let's talk about that process. We had some graphics there. I want to bring them up so you can kind of explain what Common Core actually is. So what we're seeing are some math examples, finding the sum and using front-end estimation to check that each answer is reasonable. Can you kind of explain how the old way of doing things and the new way of doing things now are using Common Core?
Well, I think it's important to understand the difference between what students are expected to know and how they actually end up learning those things. So the Common Core are a set of standards, and standards are merely goals. And that applies to the Common Core or the old set of standards that were in place in every single state or any standards that might be developed in the future. Standards are just goals. How you get there, the lessons, the curriculum, the textbooks, all these other things that you use to actually achieve those goals are completely separate. And so I think we all know just from common sense that every child needs different means of instruction. We need to individualize instruction in the classroom to make sure students with different needs and abilities are learning in different ways, but we all want students to get to that same endpoint, to memorize their basic math facts, to know how to do algebra, to know how to do higher level math, to write and read, not just based on kind of a basic understanding, but to actually use evidence and make an argument and really understand where the author's point of view is coming from.
Understand the notion of having standards. I think that's laudatory. But I got to tell you, we were talking to a lot of parents in the newsroom when we talked about Common Core, and they're upset with the math, for example, that it's overcomplicating basic skills. Now, you may be able to divorce that from a broad policy pronouncement, but are you familiar with some of the outcry about this, just with parents trying to sit down and help their kids with homework?
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm so happy that parents, like really never before, are engaged in this issue. They're looking very critically at the textbooks and the lessons and the homework assignments that are coming home in their child's backpack, and they're demanding better. This is something that's been going on for a long time, and so I'm completely with these parents, and I couldn't be more excited that they're engaged in this issue. I think sometimes this gets off track is that people assume that this is all Common Core, when I know that Newsmax and other outlets have been focusing on this issue of bad textbooks, inappropriate things going on in schools for decades, really. And we know that those things need to be addressed, but I think if people assume that merely getting rid of Common Core is going to fix any of that, they're being seriously misled, when in reality, if these parents engage with their local school boards, they engage with the teachers who actually have the decision-making power over some of the stuff they're seeing coming home, they can really make a real difference for the better.
So what's your argument? Why is Common Core better?
Got about a minute, Michael.
Well, you know, we look at the way that states set these expectations in the past, and let's face it, it's very politically easy to set the bar really low and to make it seem like all kids are doing just fine, when in reality, they ended up getting a high school diploma after 12 years plus of education that isn't worth a whole heck of a lot, and then, only then can we try our best to fix it. But you know, we need to start early. We need to make sure students, as early as kindergarten, if not earlier, are getting the skills and knowledge they need to succeed. We need to make sure that they're being challenged and that we're not just lying to parents by giving students a subpar education and calling it something fantastic. So these are better standards, they're higher standards, clearer standards for teachers, and I'm all for raising them even higher, but let's get specific. Let's talk about what's actually in the standards and also fight back against control from Washington on some of these other issues, on school choice, on any other issue where Washington is trying to tell schools what to do.
One thing that doesn't change regardless of methods of instruction, time. Unfortunately, we're out of it, but we'll have you back sometime soon.